Welcome, my friends. Welcome to the Creating Health and Wealth Retirement Podcast. His name is Rick Collins, and he's going to help you create your wealth for retirement.
And this is Mark Delaney. He's going to help you with your health for your retirement.
And he's got an excellent idea to talk about for today's show to help you create that health and wealth for retirement. Rick, what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about how important it is to be consistent and continue moving forward, even in times of difficulty, setbacks, illness, disappointment.
Rick, are you saying that people struggle on their journey to retirement? Is that what you're saying?
Imagine that. Struggling is part of daily life. Yeah, most plans for improving anything in your life, people think that if I keep doing A plus B plus C, I'll get to D. And while that may happen, that is generally not a linear progress. It's two steps forward, one step back. Oh, I'm going to go to the gym. Oh, I tweaked my ankle. Or I'm going to save an extra $500 this month. Oh, I blew out a tire driving down the road. Setbacks happen, and all too often people just flat out give up when they don't see immediate results.
You know, it's kind of interesting because as I talked about in our last episode, I went through a relationship struggle and it was love at first sight and then reality of life crept in. And I think it does happen, as you mentioned it, in every part of life. You will experience struggles or it's not worth having.
I talk to people in recovery. I lead a recovery ministry in my church, and sometimes people get frustrated. The alcoholic falls off the wagon and goes and has a drink. And what I tell them is it's important to make the next right decision. Just because you have a bad day doesn't mean you need to have a bad week, bad month, or bad year. You just have to keep putting one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, take one step at a time, and continue on your plan. Because if your goal is big enough, you can overcome the setbacks, sometimes through sheer willpower, sometimes through coaching or reaching out to friends or family. And sometimes you need to pivot and renew where you're going, maybe, or change your methodology of how you're getting to where you want to be. But maintaining momentum is what's key. Jim Rohn was a famous motivational speaker, and he had a saying that you have the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, which choose your pain. The pain of discipline is continuing to work every day, taking action, improving yourself, learning from setbacks, but continuing on the fight every day. Pain of regret is giving up and not having what you want, and then looking back 20 years later thinking what could have been or what should have been. And the pain of discipline, while it might be a daily thing, is a lot easier to bear than that pain of regret, because once you get to the pain of regret, you can't pivot, you can't change your course of life. So I want to encourage everybody that even if you're struggling, having a rough time, having a setback, keep working, keep moving forward. Don't just give up.
So I think about my history of taking care of my body. I've ruptured both my Achilles tendons. I once broke a finger falling off a bike. Many calf strains, and these were all setbacks that actually were very, very frustrating. And there's nothing, I don't say there's nothing worse, but a calf injury is so easy to retweak. And so helping myself to be able to get back on the exercise trail when every step I'm afraid I'm going to retweak that calf. And the same thing is true with diet, right? Like you go
Yeah,
to
I
a
don't know how many. I've started diets thousands of times, and sometimes I make it a day, sometimes I make it a week. But often I will have a stressful day, and my go-to is peanut butter and chocolate for stress, and I fall off the wagon and have a Reese's cup or two or 10, and especially those little miniature ones, those are terrible. Um, and then I'm like, well, I'll start again next week, and I continue that binge. So whatever I've gains or losses I've made, or gains, but whatever weight I've lost, I put back on just because I've given up for the week. Because the week's ruined, I'll start again next Monday. That's just the wrong thinking. I'm undoing progress I've made by giving in to that giving up.
So for health, for me, twice in my life, I, for whatever reason, got out of the habit of exercising. Once was during my second marriage. For some reason, I just went through the holiday season and decided I wasn't going to exercise. And then the second time was during my cancer journey, where I just couldn't get the energy to consistently exercise. And I'm really still trying to get my old body back from that experience. But the interesting thing is that, when you listen to people who are, quote, gurus, they always say it's the consistency. It's not having a great month, it's being consistently great over time. So, Rick, what's the first? So, lead us in this discussion as to how someone can get started on being consistent, especially when it comes to creating wealth for retirement.
The three things people can do to improve their finances is one, figure out where you are. Take a look at your bills, your your bank statements, figure out if you've got any money left over at the end of the month and how much money you're putting away for your retirement. Second thing is for a week, write down where all your money goes. Okay?
That's
That
a good one.
$10 Starbucks adds up, believe me.
I like that one. That's a really good one.
And third is figure out what you can do differently to put away an extra $50 a week. It's something small, but it's a start. Does that make sense? What
That
about
makes
you, Mark? What can people do to help with their health?
So I think the first thing is similar to yours, is to figure out where they are, and that is to take off all their clothes, stand before a full length mirror, and
Oh
take a look
no! Ah, that's
and
scary.
take a look at what you see. If you don't like what you see, that tells you something's wrong. Second thing is evaluate how you feel. Now, this is still part of part one, but look at yourself and evaluate how you feel. That's the first thing. Is just evaluate exactly where you are right now. Second thing would be just start walking. Legitimately, after every meal, go for a 5 minute walk. That gets you in the habit of moving. And there's evidence out there that the 5 minute walk after a meal does good things for your metabolism and your food. And then the third thing is really try to understand that mobility and balance are more important than anything else in old age. Mobility is your ability to move without a wheelchair, without crutches, without limping. I'm proud that at 65 years old almost, I can still run for miles. And the reason is because I have strong legs, I have a balanced body, and if I fall, my arms are strong enough to hold me up. And I don't think people realize how muscles and being strong helps you in old age, prevents you from falling and breaking a hip, which leads to a loss of mobility. So, number one, evaluate where you are, how you look, how you feel. Number two, just start walking. Just literally start walking. And number three, do things to maintain your strength. So if we're taking the whole theme of consistency, so we identified the problem. Talk about the consistency part, Rick.
Yeah, consistency is doing something positive, whether it's every day, every week, every month, whatever cadence that is figuring out what you're going to do, how often you're going to do it, and then being able to follow through with that commitment and actually doing it. I struggle with being consistent with exercise and going to the gym. I commit to you, I commit to our listeners that I'm going to go to the gym 3 times this week. I'm going to walk 3 times this week. And invariably by Friday, I'm like, I've only been to the gym once. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I do home workouts. And it's not the same as going to the gym. It's better than nothing, but it's easy to make excuses or procrastinate or come up with reasons. And sometimes life does happen, and there are reasons where you can't follow through with your commitments. But I waste too much time. I put off doing what I should do because I sometimes just don't feel like it, don't want to. It's not important enough to me, or I'm distracted. And so the consistency is something I struggle with. It's challenging sometimes to keep sticking to a plan that I've set for myself to follow the goals I want, the plan to get me the goals that I want, the life my life to be like.
Every big time quote guru expert that I've ever listened to talks about the power of consistency. And when you stop and really think about what does it take to be successful in life, I think that word consistency is one that's highly underrated. When I look at the things that I do consistently, I am really good in those areas. And look at the things that I have excuses and maybe do once a week and let a week go by, I'm going to use a technical term here, Rick. I absolutely suck in those areas of my life. And if I could, if I, when I work with my clients, my goal is I'd rather see you walk 5 minutes every day than walk for an hour one day and not walk again for a week. It is just so amazing. Same thing with food. If whatever they put in their body, consistently do something that they can do that's sustainable rather than these crash diets. And the
Yeah,
same thing is true with money.
yeah. If people could set aside, whether it's $50 a day or $50 a week or $100 a week or whatever, being consistent over time, first of all, ingrains that behavior. It's easier to do the more you do something. The easier the next time will be to do it. It's just like for me, exercise. If I go for a walk every day, the first couple of days um, are harder than the last. After I do it for a week, it's easier to go, hey, I'm going to go for a walk instead of, oh, I've got to go for a walk because I said I was going to. It just comes more naturally. And there's a Zig Ziglar analogy he used that was a hand water pump. The hardest part of getting water out of a hand operated water pump is priming the pump. You can pump and pump and pump and pump and nothing's coming out. And if you pump and pump and pump and pump and keep pumping and keep pumping and keep pumping, you might get tired, but eventually the water starts coming out of that well, and then you can slow down and just be consistent. And instead of working hard to prime the pump, it becomes easier and easier to keep the momentum going because you've created the momentum, you've overcome the inertia. And for health, it's the inertia of wanting to sit on the couch for 3 hours and doom scroll Facebook or watch television or sit and eat junk food. So being active or taking action, getting up and walking or going to the gym or you know following a 2,000 calorie a day eating plan versus a 3,000 calorie a day eating plan, it or saving $50 a week, or whether it's going to church regularly or reading a book regularly to build my self awareness or my knowledge base or my skill set.
Or saying I love you to your partner, or being able to, you know, your children, whoever it is, show that you love them on a consistent basis. In a previous episode, I did something called the power of 200, where, I talked about reducing 200 calories a day, saving $200 a month, spending 200 minutes a week working on something that you want to improve on, and 200 acts of love over the course of a year. That's the definition of consistency. And when you're able to do those things, all four of those areas of your life will improve. So I think that consistency is the focus. If I could recommend to you, to me, to whoever's listening, find something that you can do, be consistent at it, and eventually you'll be consistently great at it.
Yeah, it's building that muscle memory, whether it's spending habits, eating habits, exercise habits, communication habits. At first, it may be awkward, it may be uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. One of the things that people often tell me is sometimes you can decide in your mind and your actions will follow. More often than not, when people are trying to make a change in their life, sometimes the actions come first and then the mind wraps itself around, oh, this is what I'm doing now. And sometimes people call it fake it till you make it. I prefer taking action will move your mind and get your mind right. But however you want to look at it, being consistent builds that muscle memory in your mind and makes it easier to continue doing what was maybe more challenging at first, or if there's a setback. Last week I tweaked my back in the gym. And so the next time I went to the gym, I didn't work my back, but I still went to the gym and worked something else. It's not the setback doesn't have to be an excuse to give up until everything is perfect or everything is healed. I'm continuing to move forward because I don't want to go back to the starting line just because I stumble midway through a race.
I have a term that I have a word I put before consistent, and that is purposely. Because everybody is consistent at something. Every single person consistently responds to negativity is the same way they always do. Every person has a go-to it consistent. Everybody has something that they never think about it. They just do it. Purposely is thinking about what you become, what you start doing consistently. And it applies to your love life. It applies to your parenting. It applies to your diet and exercise, your finances, even your work. If I could get everyone to put the word purposely before what they're consistent at, they would move their lives in the right direction, the place they want to live.
But now you're asking people to get out of their comfort zone.
I am, because most of us are living our lives out of our comfort zone. I am not comfortable with my life the way it is now, and I'm guaranteeing you, 90% of the people in this country especially aren't comfortable where they are. They want more money, they want more love, they want more energy, they want more all that stuff, but they're not purposely doing the things that will make those things happen in their lives.
So have you ever seen the 78-year-old grandpa or grandma working as a greeter at Walmart?
Uh, I know they look 78. I don't know how old they actually are. Yes, I
A
have.
lot of times that happens because it's not because they enjoy hanging out with people and talking to strangers. It's because they have to do something because they ran out of money or they didn't save enough for retirement or they had a catastrophe or a divorce or a spouse died. They have to go to work to make ends meet. Um, I don't want that for the people that I come in contact with. And doing a little something every day along the way makes it so much easier to have a much different outcome financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically. That's why it's important to be consistent. Um, a
I'd
little
like to
every
challenge
day goes a long way.
I'd like to challenge people who are in their 50s and younger to look at people in their 60s and how they walk and how they limp and how many are now suddenly needing walkers and other assistance. Visit an emergency room and take a look at the people walking around there. That didn't happen because of something that happened that day. That happened because of stuff that they didn't do 10, 15, and 20 years ago. People aren't broke in retirement because they didn't save money that day. They're broke because of things they didn't do 10, 15, and 20 years ago. And I think, Rick, if you think about what we're really saying, is we're saying start doing the things that'll create the life you want in the future, as opposed to having the regrets, which is how you opened up the show. So I agree 100%.
Yep. So, talking about being consistent, it's it's sometimes difficult to stick with a plan. That might mean your plan is too strenuous, your goal's not big enough to pull you away from your distractions. Sometimes it might mean needing some coaching or accountability or support from a friend or people like us for physical and financial well being. Sometimes it's being honest with yourself in the mirror. Do I like where I am, who I am, what I'm going to have? And if that's not the case, then change your destination, and that'll necessitate changing your journey along the way.
When you say change your destination, what does that mean?
Okay, if I'm talking to a 40-year-old person who's going to work till 65 and then live on Social Security because they're not saving any money, and all of a sudden then I tell them, hey, Social Security right now, I pull up their report and they're going to get $2,800 a month to live on, and then pay taxes on that. So they're going to live on $2,400 a month in retirement. And I look at him like, is that going to be enough for you to have the lifestyle you have now? And he's like, no, but I'm spending all my money. I'm like, well, maybe if you want to save some money to have more in retirement, you need to do a little bit different now along the way. So when you get to 65 or 67, whenever you check out of the job market, you're not sacrificing your lifestyle then. So it's easier to do it a little along the way. And so that necessarily is going to change what they're doing now on their journey to their end goal if they want a different end goal.
So in my when I think about um, I think people want to be able to move and be healthy, and they want money to spend so they can travel. And if you don't have a plan to make those things happen, then by default, they probably won't happen. Does that sound right, Rick, to you?
It's all about the plan and figuring out a plan and sticking to the plan, like we've said.
But it starts with a desire. And I think
Yep.
people are afraid to look to the future and decide, hey, what do I really want? What do I really want? And take steps to make that happen.
People often struggle with, I'm comfortable enough where I am. My life's not terrible where I am. I'm going to stay here because I know what this feels like. And they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of being unworthy. They feel unworthy of doing something different or having something more, or they fear ridicule. People are going to mock them or ridicule them. Oh, you're too old to go to the gym. I am so proud of people who are in their 50s that weigh 300 pounds who are actually in the gym because they're doing something.
Yeah,
And people mock them and they feel ashamed. I'm like, don't be ashamed. You're awesome.
I think there's something else going on too, Rick. I think that people focus too much on their enjoyment today to even care about their future. And the first thing I try to do in my marketing and other stuff that I do is wake people up to the fact that life is longer than today. If you only focus on today, you're going to be that broke, unhealthy, alone person living in a 300 square foot apartment or in a nursing home. And I don't think people realize that, those consequences of not having a plan for the future.
Yeah, the longer we live, thanks to modern medicine, the more people need to stick around and live and actually have a life worth living. And if you're broke or broken down, those last 20 years are going to suck.
So I want to say something that's not very pleasant. And our friend Garrett J. White used to say this all the time. If you're a man and you're married to a good woman and you don't treat her right, you're going to be alone in your bedroom watching porn and masturbating. Whereas if you treated her right, you could be intimate and having fun with her. I'm going to say it another way. If you don't think about what you put in your mouth, if you don't think about moving your body, you're going to be reclined to a nursing home or a wheelchair in your old age. And Rick, you could say same thing about money. What would you say about money in that case?
If you continue to blow all of your money on plastic crap that's going to wear out in the next 5 years, you will have in your 60s and 70s, you won't even have the plastic crap and you won't have any money to buy anything new plastic crap. So you're relegating yourself to a less than ideal existence when you've worked hard all your life, you deserve to enjoy a retirement. But if you're barely making ends meet, living on Social Security or in a Medicaid nursing home because you didn't have any money to pay for a nicer nursing home, you're gonna look back and go, "Wow, I should have done different." And that's what we want people to understand is being consistent along that path of life can improve your future life, and your future self will thank you.
I think the biggest thing that people and I'm guilty of this myself. I'll be honest with you at times, and it is what you do today has an impact on your future. And we want your thought theme of being consistent says start to, and my adding the word purposely in front of it says act today for the life you want to create in the future and become consistent at it. And if people do that, their lives are going to be so much better.
Yeah, the quicker people get started in their life, the earlier they get started, the more that consistent work along the path will build momentum. It will compound. Exercise as well as finances, it accrues interest. If I exercise today, I'll be stronger tomorrow. If I exercise tomorrow, I'll be stronger the next day and the next day and the next day. And if people set aside money now and it grows, it compounds interest, you'll earn more money on the money you've already saved. You'll have to save less in the future to have more down the road. So being consistent getting up, going to the gym, going for a walk, not buying the $10 Starbucks when you can brew coffee at home for 50 cents. Things like that add up over time if you do them on a regular basis. If you're intentional with how you spend your time, money, and energy, it will pay huge dividends in your future.
So creating health and wealth for retirement requires you to make some kind of sacrifices today, is what we're basically saying. There's something today you have to give up so you can enjoy life tomorrow and not have to give up anything. And whether it's with your wealth, your health, and even your love life, even your parenting, everything that you do today is, one way or another, an investment in creating your future. And you can either enjoy it now and pay later, or you can pay a little bit now and enjoy it a lot later. Rick, we're coming to the end of another episode. Can I make a suggestion for our next week's topic? Would that be
I
okay
would
with you?
love to hear what's on your mind, Mark.
I would like to talk about why it is so easy for us to mentally and emotionally live for today and not worry about tomorrow. I'd like to talk about those mental and emotional components as to how and why we do that and what we can do to make those changes.
That sounds like an interesting podcast. I'm looking forward to it.
So if someone wanted to talk to you about creating wealth for the future, what would they do?
They go to my website, bankingforyourself.com. That's the word for, F-O-R, bankingforyourself.com. You can learn about me, a little bit of what I do, schedule a free discovery call. Now, Mark, how do they get in touch with you?
Wow. Rick, after 24 episodes, you finally remembered to
Well, I
ask
got
me.
it.
Finally got it. They can visit the School of Health. School is spelled SKOOL of Health and .com. And there's so many different ways that I will help someone. And I'm working on even newer ways that I'll announce next week, Rick.
I'm
Um,
looking forward to hearing the new and improved School of Health because, Mark, you're an awesome coach and friend, and I've enjoyed doing the podcast with you, and we're going to continue helping our listeners creating wealth and health, or health and wealth for retirement as we continue our podcast.
so one last word of advice, Rick, and then we'll be done for this week.
Fake it till you make it. Take action, whether you feel like it or not. Do it.
And mine is, don't look at the big thing you have to do. Look at the one small thing that'll get you started, whether it's with diet, exercise, finances, or just saying I love you to someone you love. Have a great week, Rick. We'll see you next week.
Have a good one, Mark.